following is a feature presentation of the Replay Sports Channel, the home for great games. This telecast is copyrighted by the WFL for the private use of our audience. Any other use of this telecast or any pictures, descriptions, or accounts of the game without the WFL's consent is prohibited.
I have this massive stack of game film breakdowns, front office memos, and, statistical analyses sitting right here on the desk between us today.
It is a pretty bully stack of paper, yeah.
Right. And going through all this stuff, it really strikes me that we often talk about the end of a regular football season like it's this controlled descent.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Like a plane just smoothly coming in for a landing.
Exactly. You kind of expect the heavyweights to just rest their starters and the playoff seeds to, gently lock into place.
Yeah, and the eliminated teams just quietly pack up their lockers and go home.
Yeah, but when you look at the raw data from the weekend of December 13th and 14th of the 2025 season, Week 15, there was absolutely nothing controlled about it.
No, it was total chaos.
Total chaos. So, welcome to this deep dive. Today, our mission is to unpack the exact 48-hour window where the 12-team playoff bracket permanently solidified.
And we really want to pull you into the weeds on this one.
Right. We are going to look at the mechanics of pressure, essentially, like why some rosters fractured under the weight of it and how others manufactured these absolute tactical masterpieces just to survive.
Yeah, because when you look at the source material, particularly the coaching analytics from that specific weekend, the sheer volatility is really what stands out. I mean, we had half a dozen franchises entering Sunday clinging to postseason life by, like, literal mathematical technicalities.
Hanging by a thread.
Exactly. So our goal today is to examine those underlying mechanisms of execution in these crazy high leverage moments.
Oh, right. Getting into the actual scheme.
Yeah, we need to dissect the schematic shifts that allowed certain teams to rally. And, well, also look at the brutal reality of teams that put on these spectacular individual performances only to be eliminated by the math of the out-of-town scoreboard.
Okay, let's unpack this, because I want to start with the most consequential game of the slate.
Oh, the guillotine game.
Yes, the matchup that literally acted as a guillotine for half the league's hopefuls. The Denver Gold versus the Cleveland Gladiators.
Right.
Because going into halftime, Cleveland actually controlled the tempo. They had a 13-9 lead.
Sam Darnold was looking great.
Yeah, Darnold was connecting with DJ Moore, and, you could really feel this monumental upset brewing in the stadium.
You really could.
And then the second half begins, and Denver orchestrates this insane 30 unanswered point explosion.
It blew the doors off.
Yeah. The notes here describe it as a domino effect, but looking at the film, it wasn't like a bowling ball knocking down pins.
No, it was much more systematic.
Right. It was like a synchronized structural demolition. They dismantled Cleveland, and by doing so, they simultaneously ended the seasons of New York, San Antonio, and Memphis all at once.
In one afternoon.
So how did Denver flip that switch so violently in the locker room?
What's fascinating here is that it actually came down to a really brilliant mid-game adjustment in their defensive front. Because in the first half, Cleveland was relying on heavy play action, right?
Yeah.
Using the threat of the run to basically buy Darnold extra time.
Right, keeping the defense honest.
Exactly. But Denver's defensive coordinator recognized this and completely changed their pressure packages at halftime.
What did they do?
Well, instead of just blitzing their linebackers, which is the standard response, they started running these really complex defensive line stunts.
Like shifting the big guys around.
Yeah, looping their defensive ends inside the defensive tackles. It completely scrambled Cleveland's offensive line blocking assignments.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and that forced Darnold to hold the ball for just a fraction of a second longer, which directly resulted in 3 devastating Cleveland turnovers.
And one of those was that lost fumble deep in their own territory in the third quarter, right?
Yeah.
Which Denver instantly converted into points.
Yeah, that fumble was absolutely the breaking point. Because when you apply that level of schematic pressure, you basically force an opposing offense into a state of total panic.
They start pressing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which leads to hero ball. Cleveland tried to force plays that just weren't there anymore.
Meanwhile, Denver is just operating like a machine.
Clinical efficiency. I mean, Geno Smith threw for 228 yards and ran for 37.
Mm-hmm.
He accounted for 4 total touchdowns.
Yeah, but the underlying engine of that second half demolition was Derrick Henry.
Oh, without a doubt.
Because Denver didn't just hand him the ball, they weaponized the altitude.
They really did.
They ran up-tempo, no-huddle packages to completely exhaust Cleveland's defensive tackles. And then they just slammed Henry into the B-gaps.
Yeah, he finished with 141 rushing yards.
Yeah.
Because Cleveland simply didn't have the oxygen or the leg strength to set the edge anymore.
It's brutal. And that level of tactical discipline is what secured Denver the number 6 national conference seed.
Exactly.
But because Denver executed that demolition, it triggered this immediate mathematical elimination for several other teams playing that very same afternoon.
Right, the dominoes falling.
Which brings us to a really fascinating psychological aspect of this weekend. Because looking at the box scores of the eliminated teams, we saw some of the most spectacular, honestly agonizing individual performances of the entire year.
Yeah, guys just playing out of their minds.
I mean, Memphis's Josh Jacobs runs for 188 yards and 4 touchdowns to just dismantle Baltimore 48-23.
Unbelievable game.
San Antonio pushes the 10-3 New Jersey Hitmen to the absolute brink.
Right.
And then there's Tampa Bay, who fielded Davante Adams, a guy they literally just signed off the free agent wire, and watched him torch the New York Generals.
16 catches.
16 catches, 248 yards, and 3 touchdowns.
I mean, that Adams performance completely overshadowed Bryce Young's 338-yard passing day for New York.
It really did. But here's where it gets really interesting. I have to push back on the psychology of this for a second.
Okay, let's hear it.
If you are a player on Memphis or Tampa Bay, and the coaching staff knows the Denver score, you know your season is effectively dead, right?
Yeah, mathematically it's over.
So why are these guys risking their bodies, playing with this absolute ferocity, when the math says it's done?
Whoa.
It feels like running a high-stakes stress test on a vehicle when you already know the transmission is blown, like playing a world-class violin solo on the deck of a sinking ship. Why put up 248 receiving yards in a meaningless game?
Well, you have to look at the economics and the individual business structures of the league.
Okay.
Because for a player like Davante Adams, who, like you said, was just signed off the street, that 248-yard performance isn't a stress test on a broken vehicle.
What is it then?
It's a globally broadcast audition tape for next year's free agency.
Ah, right. Putting it on tape for all 32 teams.
Exactly. Furthermore, many of these players have massive statistical escalators built right into their contracts.
Like bonus money.
Huge bonus money. Hitting a specific yardage or touchdown threshold in Week 15 can literally trigger a $1 million bonus, regardless of whether the team actually makes the playoffs.
So the incentive structure remains perfectly intact, even if the competitive structure has totally collapsed.
Precisely. But if we connect this to the bigger picture, the far more important takeaway from these master classes in vain is the structural warning they provide for the teams moving forward.
What do you mean?
Well, take the Baltimore Stallions. They are locked in as the number 5 seed in the American Conference, right?
Yeah.
But they just surrendered 188 rushing yards to a single player and lost by 25 points to a team that just got mathematically eliminated.
That is a terrible look right before January.
It is. And if you dive into the film of that Memphis game, Baltimore's linebackers were consistently misreading their run fits.
He's totally out of position.
Yeah, they were over-pursuing, allowing Jacobs to utilize these massive cutback lanes all afternoon.
Wow.
If you are Baltimore's coaching staff, getting gashed like that exposes a huge schematic vulnerability.
Because other teams are watching that film too.
Exactly. If they don't fix their edge-setting discipline immediately, a playoff team with a competent rushing attack is going to exploit that exact same flaw in a few weeks.
And it highlights a really harsh truth about team building too. Because Memphis won 48-23. Jacobs was unstoppable. Lamar Jackson was hyper efficient. And it didn't matter.
It didn't matter at all.
I mean, the front office reports in our stack here are already speculating if Mike Vrabel will even keep his job in 2026.
Yeah, the hot seat is very real.
It just proves that a breathtaking individual performance cannot patch over fundamentally broken roster construction over a 13-game sample size.
Yeah, individual brilliance is a Band-Aid. It is not a foundation.
Right. Which is a perfect segue into how the actual heavyweights perform.
The playoff teams.
Yeah, because the top-tier teams, the ones with the strong foundations, did not coast this weekend. They were dragged into absolute dogfights.
Just brutal games.
I mean, New Jersey had to erase a 13-point deficit to beat San Antonio. Chicago survived San Diego 23-19 to take the North Division.
That was a wild one.
Yeah, Baker Mayfield hits Jerry Jeudy for a 50-yard bomb just to overcome Nick Folk's twin 54-yard field goals for the Fleet.
Right.
And then Las Vegas narrowly held off a 3-10 Detroit team, 27-17, needing a 51-yard Jalen Hurts pass to Xavier Worthy to seal it.
And don't forget Birmingham.
Right. Birmingham had to win a 35-27 shootout over Philadelphia, with Bo Nix throwing 4 touchdowns to outduel Drake May's 382 passing yards.
Yeah. The overarching narrative from the analysts right now is that these tight, gritty wins against lesser teams are actually essential for building what they call playoff calluses.
Playoff calluses.
Yeah. The argument is that surviving a real rock fight in December prepares a roster for the physical toll of January.
So what does this all mean? Because I have to challenge that premise completely.
Go for it.
Look at the data from the Chicago game. They gave up 6 sacks to San Diego.
6 sacks is a lot.
It's a ton. They converted on third down, sure, but giving up 6 sacks isn't a gritty win. To me, that indicates a fatal microfracture in their offensive line structure.
Okay, I see where you're going.
It's like a bridge that's holding up under regular traffic, but the moment a heavy freight train, like a playoff intensity defensive front, hits it next month, that bridge is going to completely collapse.
Right.
So how can we look at these heavyweight struggles and confidently say they're building calluses rather than just exposing fatal flaws?
This raises an important question, and it's a crucial distinction to make. Giving up 6 sacks is absolutely a structural flaw, and Chicago's coaching staff will be terrified of that film.
They should be.
However, you have to separate structural flaws from tactical adaptations.
Okay.
Because the hallmark of a true championship contender isn't dominating every single snap. It's the ability to entirely pivot their methodology mid-game when their primary game plan fails.
Like changing the whole script on the fly.
Exactly. Look at the mechanics of New Jersey's comeback against San Antonio.
They were down 20-7 at one point.
That's right. They were. San Antonio was playing this really deep, too high safety shell, completely taking away Justin Herbert's deep passing options.
Making them dink and dunk.
Yeah. Now, a lesser team would have panicked and just kept forcing the ball downfield into coverage.
Right.
Instead, New Jersey's coaching staff pivoted to a heavy personnel package. They brought in extra tight ends, forced San Antonio out of that too high shell into a heavier base defense, and then just fed Joe Mixon.
Just ran it right at them.
Yeah. Mixon finished with 231 total yards. New Jersey held the ball for over 37 minutes, completely dominating the time of possession in the second half.
Wow. 37 minutes.
They essentially suffocated San Antonio's offense by keeping them on the sideline. I mean, San Antonio only ran 14 rushing plays the entire game.
That is insane.
That ability to fundamentally rewrite your offensive identity in the third quarter, that is the resilience people refer to when they talk about playoff preparation.
Okay, so it's less about the final score being close and more about the real-time problem solving required to get there.
Exactly.
Well, if surviving an ugly matchup is one way to enter the playoffs, I want to look at a team that took the exact opposite route.
Oh, the shock and awe games.
Yes, because while some teams were grinding out time of possession, others were delivering pure shock and awe. The Arizona versus St. Louis game genuinely melted my brain.
It was a crazy sequence.
St. Louis is leading 20-12 late in the fourth quarter. It looks entirely wrapped up.
Just need to run the clock out.
Right. And then St. Louis fumbles deep in their own territory. An Arizona linebacker scoops it up, returns it 43 yards for a touchdown.
Huge play.
Massive.
Right.
But then on the very next possession, St. Louis quarterback Cooper Rush throws a crushing interception. Aaron Rodgers gets the ball back and instantly hits Trey McBride for a game-winning touchdown.
It was, what, a 14-point swing?
A 14-point swing in roughly 60 seconds.
And McBride had a phenomenal game overall, catching 14 passes for 138 yards.
He did. He was incredible. But the speed of that collapse is what I want to focus on. I compare it to a runner just dropping the baton in the final 10 meters of an Olympic relay race.
That's a great way to put it.
Like, how does a locker room intellectually process a 14-point swing in a single minute? It's not just a bad play. It's like a cascading failure in a power grid, where one blown transformer causes a surge that instantly blows the next one.
A cascading failure is the perfect way to describe it. And honestly, it exposes the fragility of a team playing with a backup quarterback in high leverage situations.
Because St. Louis has been struggling.
Yeah, they've been spiraling. They've lost 3 straight since Tua Tagovailoa suffered that toe injury.
Right.
Now, Cooper Rush threw for 336 yards in this game, which looks great in a box score.
Sure.
But the mechanics of holding a fourth quarter lead require a very specific type of quarterback play. It requires hypervigilant ball security and the ability to process disguised defensive coverages under extreme fatigue.
And he couldn't do it.
Well, when that fumble happened, St. Louis was forced out of their conservative, clock-killing script. Rush was suddenly forced into a high-leverage passing situation against an Arizona defense that knew exactly what was coming. He couldn't process the rotating coverage fast enough, and he threw the interception.
And then contrast that immediately with Aaron Rodgers.
Exactly.
Rodgers sees the turnover, and instead of calling a conservative play to just center the ball for a field goal, he recognizes that the St. Louis defense is reeling. They're out of position.
He smells blood in the water.
Right. He calls a quick snap, catches them in a bad personnel grouping, and hits McBride for the kill shot.
That right there is the ultimate mechanism of December football.
Yeah.
Elite cognitive processing at the quarterback position.
Yeah.
It's not just about arm strength. It's about exploiting what we call panic geometry. You saw the exact same thing in the Atlanta versus DC game.
Oh, man.
DC's C.J. Stroud opened that game with a brilliant 89-yard touchdown drive. Looked amazing.
He did.
But Atlanta's Joe Burrow delivered an absolute masterclass in response. He threw for 404 yards, 5 touchdowns, and logged a 149.4 passer rating to rout DC 41-9.
He threw it to everybody. Puka Nacua, CeeDee Lamb, Deebo Samuel. It was a complete offensive clinic.
Because Burrow wasn't just throwing passes. He was diagnosing the DC zone defense pre-snap.
He knew what was happening before the play even started.
Right. He knew exactly where the soft spots in the coverage would be before the ball was even hiked. That level of quarterback play completely insulates a team from the kind of cascading power grid failures St. Louis suffered.
Wow.
A veteran quarterback acts as a circuit breaker. If a negative play happens, they just reset the offense immediately.
So we have the heavyweights surviving, we've got the elite quarterbacks peaking at the exact right time, but we really cannot talk about Week 15 without looking at the completely upside-down logic happening at the very bottom of the league standing.
Yeah, this is a fun one.
Because while everyone else is fighting for their playoff lives, the Los Angeles Wildcats and the Pittsburgh Maulers were engaged in this battle where losing actually carried massive franchise value.
The strategic complexities of a 3-10 team playing a 2-11 team.
Exactly. I mean, you look at the stat line for Los Angeles in this game.
It's ugly.
It's beyond ugly. They turned the ball over 3 times. They lost 4 fumbles. That is 7 total turnovers in a single game.
Yeah.
They lost Dak Prescott to an injury, brought in Russell Wilson, and he couldn't get the offense moving either.
Nothing worked.
Meanwhile, Pittsburgh wins at 30-12, relying on a very quiet but ruthlessly efficient Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, he only threw for 140 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Right, and they had a punishing run game from Davante, who had 98 yards. Sitting here reading this, it almost looks like Los Angeles was performing this dark art of intentional system failure just to secure the #1 overall draft pick.
Well, they absolutely secured that #1 overall pick by losing.
Right.
But the story of this game isn't Los Angeles's failure. The terrifying takeaway from the front office memos in your stack there is what Pittsburgh is quietly constructing.
Oh, this is wild. Because despite winning this game and playing basically mistake-free football, Pittsburgh somehow holds the #3 A&D, the #4 overall picks in next year's draft.
They do.
How does a team that just won a game orchestrate that kind of draft capital?
It all traces back to a highly calculated front office maneuver at the trade deadline.
Okay, walk me through it.
Pittsburgh essentially identified a desperation point in the market. The Tampa Bay franchise was hovering around .500, and actually believed they were one piece away from a playoff push.
They thought they were contenders.
Yeah, so Pittsburgh exploited that optimism by trading them tight end George Kittle in exchange for Tampa Bay's first-round pick.
Wow.
Pittsburgh's analytics department likely looked at Tampa Bay's remaining schedule, saw it was brutally difficult, and correctly projected that Tampa Bay would collapse.
And they did. Tampa Bay is now 4-9.
Exactly.
Yep.
So Pittsburgh holds their own pick at number 3 and Tampa Bay's pick at number 4.
Wow. So the Kittle trade wasn't just a simple roster move. It was a calculated bet against another franchise's future.
It really was.
Yeah.
Now think about the underlying mechanics of the Pittsburgh roster going into next season.
Okay.
You have Patrick Mahomes, who just demonstrated he can play highly efficient, zero-turnover football when asked to just manage a game.
Right.
You have a young, punishing, rushing attack with A-Chain. And now you are injecting 2 of the top 4 collegiate athletes on the planet into that exact ecosystem.
Oh, man.
That level of controlled capital is a complete nightmare scenario for the rest of the conference.
It fundamentally changes the way you watch a game between 2 eliminated teams.
Yeah.
It's not just garbage time. It's like high-stakes futures playing out on a grass field.
Every single snap has a ripple effect on the next decade of the franchise.
Well, as we pull back and look at the entire landscape we've discussed today, the ultimate takeaway for you listening is that the slate is officially set.
The dust is settled.
It really has. The structural demolitions, the individual masterclasses, the cascading failures, all of it culminated in this weekend.
Yep.
The 6 playoff teams in the American Conference are locked. You've got Chicago, New Jersey, Philadelphia.
And St. Louis, Baltimore, and D.C.
Right. And the 6 teams in the National Conference. Las Vegas, Birmingham, Arizona.
Plus San Diego, Atlanta, and Denver.
Exactly. They are also locked. The guillotine is dropped. And the 12-team bracket is completely sealed.
Which means the psychological landscape of the league shifts entirely starting tomorrow.
How so?
Week 16 is no longer a desperate fight for survival. It becomes a highly calculated chess match for playoff seeding.
Right, because everyone's in.
Yeah. The coaching staff's going to be hyper-analyzing everything we just talked about. They'll be masking their structural flaws, resting key players, and trying to secure home field advantage without putting any of their real postseason schemes on tape.
It's going to be absolutely fascinating to watch who plays their starters and who treats Week 16 like a glorified high-level scrimmage.
Definitely.
But before we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with one final provocative thread to pull on.
Okay.
Think all the way back to the start of our conversation today. Think about Davante Adams.
Yeah, the 248 yards.
Tampa Bay pulled a guy off the free agent wire on a Tuesday, and on Sunday, he dropped 248 yards and 3 touchdowns on a professional defense. He was just sitting there, completely undiscovered, until he was plugged into the right system.
The ultimate plug-and-play weapon.
Right. So extrapolate that out. If a struggling 4-9 team can find that kind of explosive, game-breaking firepower just sitting dormant in Week 15, what undiscovered X factors and hidden tactical weapons are the 12 playoff teams currently concealing on their benches?
That's a scary thought.
When the pressure cooker gets turned up to its absolute maximum in January and the primary game plans fail, who is going to be the unknown player that suddenly steps onto the field, catches fire, and completely alters the course of football history?
I mean, that is exactly what makes the postseason so unpredictable. The film only shows you what a team has done. It never shows you what they are hiding.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the architecture of Week 15. Keep questioning the mechanics behind the box scores, keep an eye on those subtle coaching adjustments, and we will catch you next time as the playoff seeding finally resolves itself.